MarzGurl.
And I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
And welcome to episode 5 of MokkoriPlay, the only podcast dedicated solely to all things City Hunter.
On today's podcast, we're going to cover episode 5 of City Hunter, titled Goodbye Mokkimura, A Tearful Birthday on a Rainy Night.
Isn't that just pleasant, that they just give the whole thing away right there in the title? It's so typical of Japanese media, too.
Especially older Japanese media, especially, like, pre-2000s stuff. They would let you know a week in advance if somebody was gonna die.
And this is all media, too. Like, live-action media, they don't care. Like, I'm remembering going back and rewatching Go Ranger.
Right,
it's the very first Super Sentai series. And they just straight up tell you, oh, by the way, next week, Yellow is dying. Dude! Bro, why would you tell me this?
Thanks a lot, man. And that's the thing about it. Like, you would think, well, the series is going pretty well. We got maybe a trio going. We just introduced Kaori. We're gonna have some fun. Nope. He's dead. He's so dead.
He deaded very fast.
He deaded very fast. And the thing about it is, and we'll talk about it more, we're gonna get to know Mokkimura so well this episode. And this is his last official episode.
There's a couple of cute things amongst the three of them, too, in about the first, 5 or so minutes of the episode. And that's it. That's all the cute, happy fun amongst the three of them we'll ever get.
And it's just to reiterate the whole letting you know ahead of time what you're getting yourself into. So we rewatched the episode through Verve, since we have that subscription. Verve's description of the episode, and I quote, Kaori's big brother and Ryo's partner is murdered on her 20th birthday.
Thank you, episode description, which I'm sure is just the Japanese description translated.
Right, but it's like, there's a murder this episode. Actually, there are several murders this episode.
Oh, there's more than several.
There's more than several. We actually counted how many, and we'll get there. But we need to focus on the main murder, which is the crux of this whole thing.
Okay, but stuff happens before the murder, okay?
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get it started. So we're starting out exterior at a warehouse. And there's criming happening.
And you're just like, who the hell are these guys? Like, I don't care about these guys.
And then you see this big guy who we're introduced to, who's referred to as the General. And the first thing we notice about him is, oh, look, this tall man brought in some flowers.
He's a very tall dude dressed in all black, and yeah, he's carrying a bouquet of flowers, and he's just like...
He's in a cape.
He's like, I thought I would leave it here at the dead bodies. What dead bodies? Bam, 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 bam!
And there's shots, there's explosions, there's a lot of bodies, and then it's like, oh, they were the dead bodies. Got it.
Thanks.
Like I didn't see that coming.
The car explosion was
Now,
pretty
this guy's
good.
the General, not the guy with the car insurance. This is a different General entirely.
Well, somebody needed some car insurance, though.
You would think.
Because that car blew the hell up.
Yeah, you got a car bomb there. Not an Irish car bomb, just a regular-ass car bomb. And they're gone. So, normally every week we've been talking about who our client is for the week. And technically speaking, the client here is going to be a man by the name of Garcia, who has left a message there at Shinjuku Station for Mokkimura to pick up. But before we even get into that, we need to have a little bit of lighter fare this episode. So we're going to take Ryo and Mokkimura and put them in a cabaret club.
So, again, this is stuff that if you've played the Yakuza franchise, you know exactly what this is, you know exactly what this looks like. It takes place in Shinjuku, so it's probably the same kind of cabaret clubs that you're finding down in actual kabukicho, where you're sitting with a bunch of girls at a booth, and they're there just to be your company, and to make you happy, and have conversation with you, and they encourage you to keep buying drinks, which Ryo very happily does, because he thinks, oh man, I've just won a shit ton of money at pachinko.
He had a hot day at the pachinko parlor, and I'm going nuts. I'm balling out tonight.
Mokkimura, what are you drinking, man? I'm gonna pick up all your drinks. And Mokkimura,
it's alright, man. I'll ice you. And Mokkimura's just there, kind of like sipping, and he's like, yeah, I'm alright, man. We're alright. You don't understand. I got you, man. I love you, man.
And then it turns out the bill is like over $700.
Something like that. Like all sevens, they say.
They say all sevens, and it's a 5-digit number. So,
we're looking at, give or take, adjusted for yen to dollar conversion, about $750 worth of drinks.
Right.
which technically can't happen because the thing a lot of people aren't aware of is they're at Japanese bars. You have to kind of pay a cover charge for even being in the establishment, especially they're at cabaret clubs.
Right.
So easily just the two of them getting in, that's about, I want to say like $40 together, like $20 a pop. And then they're buying
I mean, it could go higher than that depending on the location.
Like, and clearly Ryo's gotten some bottles. You know, he's a little red in the face. We don't know if they had snacks.
Well, he was definitely making sure the girls got to drink too.
Of course, because, you know, he's got to get that Mokkori potential up.
But when it turns out that it looks like he can't pay, the girls are like, well, we're just gonna move on. Because, I mean, their job is to go and talk up the clientele that are actually gonna buy drinks.
Like, dude, they're not actually into you. This is another form of the service industry. This is their job, man. Like, you're not getting anywhere with this. You might as well go home after you've covered this enormous tab you've rung up.
And they're basically telling you it's time to go home.
So we see, the next morning, we see them at Makimura's place.
And they're so hungover.
They're so hungover.
Dead asleep hungover.
And they're foot to head in bed with each other, which kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you remember the stories about Nick Frost and Simon Pegg when they were just starting out as actors. They used to sleep that way when they couldn't afford better accommodations, and they got really close to each other that way. That's just the bond they have as actors and friends. Well, here I kind of see that in Ryo and Makimura. They have no problem having slept that way. It doesn't seem to matter that they're about to have major hangovers.
Right.
Like, this doesn't seem like the first time this has happened.
Entirely possible. Also entirely possible, it was never Makimura's idea. I really feel like it had never been Makimura's idea to get that plastered.
I mean, probably not, but even then, there seems to be a lot of familiarity here is what I'm saying.
Oh, sure. Like, he's like, oh, alright, let me go make sure that Ryo doesn't get his dumb ass caught up in anything. And then he also ends up getting drunk and hungover in the process.
Also, you gotta imagine, if they're that plastered the night before, the Mini Cooper, which we don't see in this episode, is probably parked somewhere else.
Oh, I'm sure they caught a ride home.
They got a taxi or something. And so we have Kaori, who we just had introduced last episode, now waking them up with, you know, a stick in a pan. Hey, you idiots, it's noon.
It's noon.
Get up.
Which, I guess we should go ahead and kind of remind people, this is Makimura's apartment, meaning it's also Kaori's apartment.
Yes.
And also, the last time we ever see this apartment.
Yes, unfortunately, this is the last appearance of both Makimura and the apartment, officially. More so the apartment than Makimura, because like we've said before, we're going to see him in a lot of flashbacks later on throughout the series, but here, this is the last time we're going to see this apartment in this episode.
So Kaori wakes the two of them up, and Ryo kind of is like stumbling out of bed, but he realizes, hey, there's a pretty lady here.
Hey.
And I really want to really impress upon the idea that Ryo, at current, really finds Kaori to be attractive, and he's not hiding it.
Yeah, first thing he says as soon as he notices she's there, big ol' smile on his face, Mokkori boobs! And he's there.
Boner boobs.
Boner inducing boobs is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Immediately hit with a frying pan.
Which, fair.
Fair, he deserved that. But the funny part about that is that the frying pan to the head leads him to accidentally kiss Makimura.
You know, this was done well before the Naruto accidentally kissing Sasuke incident.
Yeah, this predates it by at least a good 20 years.
No,
well, maybe not 20, like 15?
Like 15
Let's
years.
say 15 years.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to freak out about it. There's not a classroom of people there.
They're not freaking out about it, but they do get to the breakfast table and they're kind of groaning about everything that just happened.
Yeah, but they don't really complain. They just kind of take their coffee and they just don't talk about it.
Yeah, this I feel like just kind of stacks upon things that will come throughout this series where you sort of wonder, might Ryo not actually care that much about whether he ends up kissing a man or a woman, but sometimes if he thinks about it too hard, he freaks himself out and has a gay panic, even though actually the truth of the matter might be he might be scared of what it actually means for him to be attracted to somebody that's not technically a cisgendered woman.
We don't know.
But we don't know. That's not, technically, that's headcanon, if I'm to be honest, but
Yeah.
it comes up so often.
It really does.
That you start to wonder, like, later on it'll come up with Umibozu at some point. He kind of plays some gay chicken with Umibozu.
Yeah, we'll get to that more later.
Yeah.
But Kaori goes ahead and reminds Makimoto, hey, you know what day's coming up? What are we gonna do? He's like, hey, let's go out to eat. We'll do that.
Well, what day is it, Josh?
It's Kaori's birthday.
Yay! That's my favorite.
Yes, the 20th birthday. The most important one.
The one where she's totally legal to drink and smoke.
Yes, amongst other things.
Amongst other.
So what ends up happening is Kaori says, okay, I'm gonna cook. Ryo decides to say, your cooking's probably not gonna be that great. And as he's complaining about it, or as they're talking about it, I want to say camera, but the animators wanted to make sure we got a really good look at her ass.
Like, so it starts off just in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, right? It's like a sixth of the screen, which is already pretty bad, and it's just her left ass cheek.
Right.
But then the camera pans from her left ass cheek across her whole ass to the right ass cheek. Like, at one point...
To put Ryo in frame.
Yeah, to put Ryo in frame on the other side of her ass cheek. If you were to pause this camera pan, at one point, her ass would be pretty much the entire picture.
Right.
And like, I just want to, again, really enforce this idea of the artists think Kaori is hot. Ryo thinks Kaori is hot.
Yes.
It's just as time goes on and after Makimura dies, Ryo is trying real hard to distance.
To walk that back.
Yeah, he's trying to walk that back because he thinks he's trying to do his buddy a favor by not hitting on his sister, but like, no, there's no hiding, like she's supposed to be the main girl.
Absolutely. So after all this is said and done, we go ahead and get into the meat of the episode, which, like we mentioned before, is that there's been a message left for City Hunter to go ahead and meet up with the client, this week's client, at the Silky Club, which, as we're told, is a den of ill repute.
The hive of scum and villainy.
Yes,
Yeah.
very Mos Eisley kind of place. Ryo warns Makimura not to go because this is a really seedy place. Let me go. But Makimura decides to be a workaholic. Like, hey, look, man, I know you're trying to be nice and let me be there for my sister's birthday, but I'm on the clock, all right? I gotta do this.
Yeah, job waits for no family. Sorry, bro.
Now, before Makimura actually heads off, there's actually a really big portion of backstory that we're told about who Kaori is to Makimura.
So, spoilers, except not spoiler if you're actually watching along with us. Kaori is not his blood sister.
They're not biologically related.
They're not biologically related. She was adopted. She was brought home by his father.
By Makimura's father.
By Makimura's father. Her parents were part of some sort of crime. They were involved in criming.
Yes, we'll actually get a little bit more information on that later on in the series, but for right now we're just told that there is a ring that was one of Kaori's mom's possession.
Makimura's father intended, when she turns 20, I'm gonna give her this ring, and I'm gonna tell her, hey, I just want to let you know you're adopted. But he died when she was 5 years old, so he didn't get the chance to do that, so Makimura planned on doing that. But Makimura's not really gonna get that chance now either.
Yeah,
so.
he's not really gonna make it here. Like, if you didn't know he was red flagging already with the episode telling you, he's red flagging pretty hard right now.
Right.
Like, I think of it like, Hot Shots. When the one guy is saying all of these things, like he's walking under the ladder, he breaks a mirror, he's like, oh, yeah, I don't need to sign those insurance papers, we'll wait on that. Hey, let's talk about this stuff I uncovered about the JFK investigation, it'll blow the whole thing wide open, but I'm not going to tell you right now. I got something important to do, I'm going to go do this. It's like, we get it, you're going to die, all right? You don't have to telegraph it so hard. But after he's made this major plot dump, then he goes ahead and heads to the Silky Club.
Walks into the club, Ryo is giving him this gun. He walks up and there's a crime lord, he's part of the Red
Pegasus.
Red Pegasus, and says, okay, so we want to take over the Kanto region, but there's this other crime family and we want you to do them in. And Makimura's like, no. And they're like, well, you better. And he's like, well, I'm not gonna. And he pulls a gun out on the crime lord and he's like, I'm walking away from you because I might be a rat, but at least it's better than being the devil. And he leaves.
Well, the cool thing about it is this is one of the few, really it's the only time I guess, the only time that Makimura gets to be kind of this stoic badass. It's the way he turns him down about like he gives him this whole speech about selling your soul in the thinnest slices possible but I'm not selling my soul to you at all.
Also, crime syndicate lord dude threatened his sister. And
Right,
he's like,
and
oh, hell no, bitch. You are not going to threaten my family.
And then he immediately knifes the two guys behind him in the hand with butter knives, I think. Like
Butter knives.
That's extreme.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, before he left, when he was talking to Ryo, he's talking about, man, I don't know, my skills aren't what they used to be. And Ryo's like, nah, man, you're the only one who believes that. You still got some skills.
And then he knifes two people in the hand with butter knives.
Like, that's hardcore.
Yeah.
But yeah, you notice the second Kaori was on the table, like, Garcia's like, hey man, you got a sister out there, might be terrible if something happened to her, I'm just saying.
Hey, fuck you! Knife! Gun to the face!
Yeah, like, gun in his face, like, you touch her, I swear. And that is enough to put Makimura on his blacklist, like, nah, we're gonna off him. We're just doing him in. Like, no question. Like, he does it in that stereotypical bad guy, like, oh, well, if he won't be with... No, it's just... Cut to the chase, you're gonna kill him.
So Makimura turns down this job and he's like, well, I guess I'm gonna go home to my happy little sister on her happy 20th birthday. Oh shit, there's a dude in the middle of the road. Stops his car for the dude in the middle of the road. It's raining. That's another bad thing.
That's already a red flag right there. You're driving your little Volkswagen Beetle and there's a dude with a cape in the road with a dead cat.
So this is, yeah, it's a weird ass dude. But this is the dude from the very beginning of the episode. The general that you're like, who the fuck is this guy? I don't care about this guy. What is going on with him? He gives this real weird speech. I'm holding this dead cat. Oh, I just found this dead cat in the road. I'm gonna replace the dead cat with a dead you in the middle of the road.
Yeah, like, there are better ways to taunt your target than this.
Than with a dead... Like, that was kind of psychopathic. I'm not gonna lie. That was pretty weird.
Like, I'm just over here, like, did the general... Does he practice this in the mirror before he goes and does this? Like, I need a prop. Is there a cat outside? Meow.
Well, I mean, I really...
Like, I don't know.
I really hope he legitimately found a dead cat and not that he went out and murdered a cat.
I mean, he's not a good dude.
But he's also a psychopath, so he probably murdered that cat.
He probably murdered the cat himself.
It's really sad, actually.
I mean, for the purposes of intimidating your target, a fresh dead cat is best.
Oh my god.
I'm not the one who did it. I do not support dead cats. I love our two girls that are sitting on the couch right now, and we love them very much, and I would not like to see harm come to cats.
Yeah.
That having been said, that's what shows that this guy is a jerk.
He's a psychopath. So we don't actually see what happens, right? Like, we're just seeing them standing off in the rain, and then suddenly it cuts to commercial. And then we come back, and Ryo's like, oh, it sure is a rainy night outside.
Waiting outside his apartment, outside Ryo's apartment, not Makimura's.
Yeah, it sure is a rainy night outside. It would sure suck to have to go out there. Oh shit, Makimura, what happened to you?
And he's walking up, and, he's holding his side, and clearly it didn't go well with the general. We assume the general has shot him because, he's bleeding, and he's giving his... dying wish.
He's collapsed in Ryo's arms, pulls out the ring box that he was talking about to Ryo earlier, like, yeah, my dad, he wanted to give this ring to Kaori on her 20th birthday. Hey, Ryo, can you do that for me, please? Can you give her this, please?
So he tells Ryo 4 things. They're the last things he's gonna tell him. He tells him, go rip the wings off of Red Pegasus, give this ring to Kaori, take good care of her, and be careful of the black right hand, whatever that means.
He had about enough energy to get all that out and to give him the ring box to give to Kaori for her birthday present. And then, whoa! I just died in your arms tonight.
It must have been the general.
So that's it. That's Makimura for the... Yay!
Yep,
here's your flowers, man.
Here's the flowers to Makimura. We appreciate you being here, man. Great having you on the show for 5 episodes. The thing about it, though, is it's played... I mean, obviously, this is a central character. It's not played... The rest of the episode, there's no jokes.
No, this is super serious. And Ryo has taken this death very hard. He's taken it really serious.
Like, he tells Makimura as he's dying there in his arms, he's basically made a request to City Hunter, or the part of City Hunter that still... hasn't been shot. And Ryo tells him, don't worry, man, your fee to me has been paid by all my memories with you.
Like, he already knows this man's about to die in like 30 seconds, so.
And Ryo, he has the experience to know whatever, like, he probably felt the wound there, like, no, this is fatal. I can imagine how long he's been gone versus how much he's bleeding out. I can't do anything for him.
Right, but I just want you to realize, so when he tells him, all right, go rip the wings off of Red Pegasus, he means go into the club and fuck him up, is what he means. And Ryo's like, I'm gonna go to this club and I'm gonna fuck him up.
He's like, bet, I got that, man. That's your dying wish. I will do that.
Also, on top of that, realize Ryo really only kills so many people throughout the series. Like, it's not like he's not a murderer.
Well, it's rare that he goes on a killing spree.
This is what I'm getting to, though, right? Like he might kill a couple of people because he got hired to do it and he genuinely believes, okay, these are really shitty people, I will kill them. And it doesn't happen very often. This time, he's like, this was my fucking best friend, you sons of bitches.
Well, because let's go back over this for a second. Let's look at that. Episode 1, he kills the BMW killer basically in self-defense. Like, he's being shot at. He kills the boxer guy because it was a hit. You know, he was hired to do that by the girlfriend.
And the boxer was also a murderer, too.
Of course. The guys who were trying to get the bioweapon, you know, in the plane and all that, you know, that was to
the helicopter or whatever.
Yeah, that was to stop terrorism. You know, all good reason. But this time, it's personal.
Right, and I feel like he becomes less and less of a killer over time. Well, but this is slaughter. This is straight up slaughter.
It's the thing that happens. It'll happen here and it'll happen again later. There's only really two things that'll set him off. This, of course, being the death of his close friend, his partner, his eyeball. And the other being later, if anybody, much like Makimura before him, if anybody threatens Kaori or has captured Kaori.
Fuck him up.
That's what you gotta do.
Fuck him up.
And so he just offs these guys.
Oh, he just walks straight up and they're like, hey, who's that guy over there? He kills a baker's dozen dudes by the end of all of this.
No, more than that. If you count everybody.
Isn't a baker's dozen 14?
No, it's 13. Baker's dozen's 13.
He kills a baker's dozen plus 1.
Yes.
Yes.
You saying that just makes me want donuts. I hate you.
Well, what? Baker's dozen is usually eggs.
It's also donuts.
Okay, it's whatever.
Donuts are great. Anyway, point being, he immediately offs the 2 guards outside and then proceeds to, we don't even get to see the shots. He just mows down 10 people.
No, you just see the
bodies.
The camera pan across the room and you're just like, 1, 2, 3, 4,
9, 10. And he's just immediately, within seconds, he's taken out 12 people. Easily. We get this little weird part here where he gets into the middle of the club and there's a dancer there who is clearly under the influence of the drugs that Red Pegasus is selling. And this is the second one we've seen in the entire episode because there was a hostess earlier in the episode when Makimura showed up that he could see the markings of, oh, she's under the influence of the drugs they're selling.
And what kind of drugs are these? Like, clearly, they don't seem like just plain old feel-good drugs because they also seem like, oh, well, I'm gonna do what I'm told while I'm under the influence of these drugs, too.
If it was me, I'm willing to bet it's some kind of opium.
Maybe.
You know, that's messing with their will. You know, really kind of dragging them down, and the whole point is to get them addicted, and then, you know, they're coming back for more. They want their next fix. So we have this one dancer there on the floor who's distracting Ryo while Garcia is goading him on, like, oh, I killed Makimura because he wouldn't sign up with us. Hey, I'm gonna give you the same chance. You're gonna do it? And Ryo's like, hell no, man. I'm not doing that. I'm here to do you.
Well, and then on top of that, like, he starts to feel pity on this woman dancing here, and he's like, don't worry, when this is all over, I'll seduce you later. And for whatever reason, that seems to snap her out of it.
Well, then he kisses her.
Yeah, which is a little kind of like, she doesn't have the capacity to say no, and she does kind of, which kind of bothered me a little bit, but clearly she thought clearly enough. Right at that moment, when Garcia's like, fuck it, shoot him up, and she steps in, she snaps out of it. She snaps out of the drugs, and is like, I'm just gonna protect this guy.
And she takes a rain of bullets for Ryo, and I'm not counting this as one of his kills, like, she got in the way, she's collateral damage.
Right.
For this episode. And Ryo's like, well, now you're gonna get it even worse. And he manages to take out a stage light, and the weird part, we were talking about this as we're watching it, the stage light stays lit as it's falling.
Yeah,
There's no power connected.
It's not connected to anything anymore.
But it's enough to light up where Garcia's hiding in the control room, and Rio gets him one in the chest and lets him bleed out.
So he's not quite dead yet, but check it out. The general is in the room playing the piano, and it's like, oh shit, you're the dude with the black hand, and you murdered my friend. Dude is over here bleeding out on the ground. He's like, help me. And he's like, no, you didn't pay me to help you. You paid me to kill Rio. Bye. Dude dies. Now all that's left is Blackhand General and Rio.
It's time for us to duel for the first time.
For the last time.
And since Rio has already been tipped off by Makimura, nothing the general does works. He tries to shoot him with what we find to be a robotic right arm.
He shoots, I think, through his middle finger.
And he shoots the arm off, so that's not a problem.
So that didn't work, so then the guy falls over onto his knees. Haha! Hidden knee barrel cannon.
He's got a knee gun, which we didn't know about, so...
But it doesn't even fire off, because Rio's like, well, we're gonna deal with this before he even gets a chance. Pew!
Shoots right up the barrel, right up his knee barrel. He's like, you got it up the barrel? And then Tokusatsu explosion.
Shabams! Yeah.
Shabams.
Very shabams. I kind of want to briefly point out that this character, this Beware the Man with the Black Hand...
The general here.
The general is a dude who's gonna pop up in the French adaptation of the movie.
Version of
But
him.
it's like a version of him. It's definitely the same guy that killed Makimura, but they have taken their own twist on what it means to be Black Hand.
Right, whereas here, it's literally a guy whose hand, something's up with his hand to make it look black.
He's wearing like a glove, and also his hand is a robot gun hand.
Right, whereas in the movie, in the French adaptation, the live-action adaptation, Nicky Larson, it's more like, oh, it's the name of an assassin or a criminal organization, and they play it a little different, but to the same effect. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who kills Makimura, and Rio has to get revenge on him.
Right.
Which they managed to do, and they do that very, very well.
They do it very well. They do it in the stage production, the Takarazuka production as well.
Yes, yeah. Which we've actually gotten a chance to see a performance of, so we've got that to compare it to, thankfully. That's something that stays consistent throughout each of the adaptations of City Hunter.
Right. So, even the Jackie Chan City Hunter film, they really briefly blow through the beginning part of City Hunter right at the beginning of that movie, and Makimura dies right at the beginning of the Jackie Chan City Hunter movie, and they don't necessarily talk a lot about Blackhand himself, but this whole death scene and telling Rio, hey, take care of Kaori or whatever. Like, that's all covered in, like, the first 2 minutes of the Jackie Chan movie.
Right, exactly. So now, the only thing that's left is the uncomfortable duty of being the bearer of bad news and telling Kaori on this day of her birth that she no longer has a sibling.
And it's such a bummer too, like she's already prepared dinner, the table has been set, all the food is laid out, and she sees Rio come in, and he's come in all by himself, and he's carrying this briefcase, and she's like, this is weird, and he's like, yeah, about why it's weird. Here,
and why it's just me.
Here, this ring box was a gift from your brother, and she just already understands before he even tells her.
Like he gives her the box first.
Yeah.
But she's already kind of mentally in like, oh no, it's the worst thing I can imagine has happened. And he confirms that, unfortunately, Makimura has been killed by an organization. And then he immediately follows up with, I dealt with them. You're good, but here's a stack of cash that I took from them. Get out of town for your own safety. Like, he immediately thinks to take care of her. He doesn't want her wrapped up in this. He saw what it did to Makimura. Whether he's developed deep feelings that quickly for her or not, he's thinking of her safety.
They're probably not super deep. At this point in time, it's probably a matter of, I'm going to do right by my partner, and this is my partner's sister, and I want to make sure that I do exactly what he told me to do, which was take care of her, give her this money, make sure that she's set for life. And she could have been had she said okay, but she didn't say okay.
The thing of it is, like, props to Rio for this. He immediately took care of those 4 things on the list. Tear off Red Pegasus's wings. Boom. I took out their boss. Fine. He gave Kaori the ring. Fine. Make sure to watch out for the guy with the black hand. Fine.
Murdered that guy.
And then take care of my sister, which is what he's trying to do here.
So take care of my sister ends up being a lifetime thing that he doesn't really realize just how far this is gonna go.
Like, he tells her to get out of town. He tells her to leave, distance herself from him, from this city, from this life. But she immediately turns him down. She tells him, no, I'm putting the ring on. I'm never going to forget this. I'm never going to leave this place. This was my city. This is my brother's city. You need a partner.
And Rio tries to turn her down even, or maybe not even so much turn her down, but warn her, no, if you do that, it could kill you. And she doesn't even answer. And then he doesn't even answer back. It's this silent, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. And this silent, okay then. And that's where we leave off.
Yeah, that's the thing. The end is played in, with the exception of Get Wild coming up like it always does. It's played in silence. It's just kind of the silent, look, even if I tried to talk you out of it, I know I can't.
Well, I mean, on top of that, I think she's very likely acting in grief at that moment in time. And she's like committing to it based on youthful grieving. This is what a young grieving person's kind of decision would be in this sort of situation. But Rio doesn't say no. I mean, maybe he figures, well, I'll keep an eye on her then. Maybe he doesn't even figure she's gonna do a good job as a partner, but we
don't know, because the thing of it is, we imagine a little bit between this episode and the next episode, episode 6, that a little time might have passed. They never actually say, as far as I'm aware. We'll double check that in the next episode. But for right now, you imagine they had to have some conversation about that. But right then in that moment, it's better not to say anything, because you're both dealing with a loss right here. You're dealing with the loss of a friend and a partner. You're dealing with the loss of your only living family. Mm-hmm. And that's tough on anybody. So I think I really do like that the choice that the episode made was the right one, to make sure to leave on them not saying more than they needed to.
There was an interesting little note here. I brought this up while we were rewatching this episode. The first 5 episodes, I thought it was really interesting, and I have no idea whether or not it was intentional. But Rio wears his red shirt.
His long sleeve shirt.
His long sleeve shirt. And the shirt, it's long, but I think it's more like 3/4.
Kind of like a baseball length.
Like baseball tee. And you can see the red sleeve pop out past the cuffs of his blue jacket in like the first 5 episodes. And sometimes it'll pop back up again throughout the series that he wears it in that manner. But after he has murdered everyone in that nightclub and he comes back to Kaori with the money, he has put his jacket back on and he's rolled his red sleeves up underneath,
up to his shoulders,
perhaps up to his shoulders, and now you can't see the red sleeves anymore. You just see the blue cuffs of the jacket, and it stays that way. That's like his primary look from that point on, for the most part.
Like, if that was almost to say, now it is my turn to roll up my sleeves, literally and figuratively, to take care of Makimoto's sister.
Yeah, so I don't know if, like I said, I have no idea whether that was an intentional move on the animator's part to do that, but it very much happened between, this is when he got shot up, my sleeves were down here, when he shot up the club, and when he gets back to the apartment, the sleeves are rolled up, and they stay that way.
Right.
So it's interesting. It's really interesting
it's a very noticeable choice, and to me, that's the read that I get off it. Mm-hmm. That's the reason he's made that decision. And having gotten through this episode, like we've said before, this episode changes the course of the series, because now the dynamic has changed. It's going to be Kaori moving in to Ryo's apartment.
It's the Kaori Ryo show from this point on, and it begins to pick up in pace and in comedy from this point forward. It's not like super laugh out loud, ha funny right away. There's a couple of funny moments, like you even get a glimpse of a cute funny moment in the preview of the next episode too. But it's still going to take a few episodes before you're really like, oh man, this is just laugh out loud.
This is hilarious.
Hilarious, yeah. It takes a little while, but from this point on, you start to see the direction of the show and the tone of the show kind of shift. Mm-hmm. Just takes a little bit of a turn, just enough to finally be like, oh, it's finally less weird and awkward and slow and uncomfortable.
Which I imagine in terms of storytelling makes a lot of sense, because you're dealing with all this, so it takes a little while to get used to the new norm of the life that Ryo and Kaori will now share. Mm-hmm. Which is a weird way of saying it, because it makes it sound like it's a bigger relationship than it is at this moment. But we know what's gonna get there.
It will be. You gotta wait a really long time, like, to get from here to, like, season 2 stuff.
Right.
Like, you gotta wait until season 2 for a bunch of big payoffs, but the payoffs are worth it.
It's absolutely worth it. But unfortunately, at this point, we have to say our goodbyes to Mokkimura, episode 1 to episode 5. You will be missed. You were a good partner. But now...
we'll see you again in flashbacks. We'll visit your grave site a couple of times.
Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be seeing you. So yeah, that'll move us on to next episode where we get introduced to another big member of the cast, which will be Umibozu.
Oh man, I'm so excited to talk about Umibozu. He doesn't look entirely like himself the first time we see him, but he will very quickly.
Yeah, we have that to look forward to.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of our podcast. Come back next time when we cover the 6th episode of the TV series, No Romance for This Actress, The Last Shot for Hope.
If you want to catch us outside this podcast, you can always find us both over on Twitter. I'm at JoshKnightTheFirst.
And I'm at MarzGurl. Thank you so much for listening to episode 5 of MokkoriPlay. And if you don't come back next episode, I'm gonna throw darts at Josh's face.
Wait, what?